Welcome to N.E.T Collective, where we navigate everything together, from classroom to college to careers and beyond. I'm Kay McBroody, career coach and founder of Waterville Partners.
I'm Ruth Hayes, founder and managing partner at Fulcio Prep, a boutique tutoring firm.
I'm Vinita Patel, school psychologist in private practice. You can find me at vinitapatel.com.
Today we're going to be having a conversation that I know we've all been looking forward to. We're going to talk about executive functioning, which is very much at the nexus of what we're all working on and I think comes up a lot in our conversations. So I'll turn over to you, Vinita, as the expert among experts. What is executive functioning?
So our executive functioning system, it's a complex set of skills that help us manage tasks that we have to do every day. And it incorporates a number of different skills, and we're going to go over each one of those skills. So in this specific episode, what I'd like for us to focus on is, because it's such a complex topic, and we use our executive functioning skills every day, I want to make sure that our listeners really understand all of the various skills and behaviors that go into our executive functioning system. And so for this episode, you're just going to be learning about those specific skills and what they look like in the real world. And then in the next episode, which is directly after this one, we're going to talk about what strategies you can use for each one of those skills if there is a weakness or an area or, like a gap area in that behavior.
How many skills are there?
How many skills are there? Well, I'm going to be talking today about the top 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there has been some theories in the field about how executive functioning skills are anywhere from 1 to 23. So I'm picking the top 10 that I have seen in my practice as being the ones that get in the way of being the most productive that you can be.
Okay.
Okay,
cool.
Good. Yeah.
What's the first one?
Okay, so the first one, and I always like to start with organization, and that is because organization or disorganization is something that we can readily observe. You can see someone at, pretty much anywhere, walk through the door and you can see whether they're organized or put together or not. I've had students come into my office with their backpack hanging off of their shoulder. There's papers just, kind of rattled in there. There's really no system to their material. So when I talk about organization, it really means your space, your material, and how chaotic that space is, whether it's your workspace, your desk at home, your locker, your car, your bedroom. Are you able to find the things that you need to do whatever it is that you need to do?
Okay.
Or are you spending an inordinate amount of time trying to search for your keys or that assignment that you did but you don't know where it is? Okay. So it's really putting things into place.
Okay.
Now, so the one thing about organization that I also want to expand upon is that's physical organization. Okay, that's stuff that we can readily see.
Okay.
But there's also something called your internal organization. Okay, and what that means is being able to get your thoughts across in a way where they're not disorganized. Have you ever had moments where you want to tell a story and you want to try to tell it in a nice order or in a sequential order, but you're not doing that, and it's kind of going, the middle part is coming first, and the last part is coming first, and all of that. So I also talk about the internal organization of the students and individuals that I work with. So if you are physically organized, if you're organized on the outside, chances are you're going to be more organized with your thoughts on the inside.
Okay.
Okay.
And what are some ways that you get insights into how internally organized people are?
Into how well, okay, so what that would look like is if you're telling a story or if you're retelling a story, or we see it a lot with essay writing, So if your thoughts are kind of all over the place, then you really don't have that internal organization so that you can get those thoughts down on paper, or if someone's giving you, let's say, or if you're giving someone directions, you're not really, systematically expressing them in a way where it would make sense.
Okay. So here's a question. The internal organization and the external organization. I've heard it said that your external world is reflective of your internal world, so that if you are disheveled and disorganized externally, chances are you aren't in alignment or organized internally. Is that
Yes, that they absolutely work
okay?
together.
I didn't know if that was just an old wives' tale or adage, or if that was
No, there's actually research on that. And
okay.
so that's what I say is like, if you're working with me for executive functioning skills, well, let's work from the outside in.
Okay.
And let's make sure that you have the materials you need, your space makes sense. Now, I'm not here to say everyone needs to have, a super clean, super organized, anything like that. We're not in the military here.
Right.
However, and there are some people that thrive in chaos. I don't recommend that for our teens, adolescents, or college students. If you're that way as an adult, that's one thing. But you're an adult, so you can make those choices. But early on, I think it's important to have a system where you can find things, where you can place items where they properly need to be placed. And so to your point, Kay, you're right about that, is that they go hand in hand.
Okay.
So let's work from the outside in.
Got
so
it.
that your external world meets your internal world.
Okay.
So that's organization. And I like to start with that when we talk about, executive functions, because that is something that is readily observable.
all right?
Yeah.
Okay?
What's next?
So what's next is let's talk about time management. That time management. So what does that really mean? I mean, it's fairly self-explanatory, but it's really allotting the right amount of time or an appropriate amount of time to get whatever task it is that's done. So oftentimes individuals who have time management issues tend to either overestimate or underestimate how long something will take them. I can't tell you the number of times that students have said to me, oh, this will only take 5 minutes. This will only take 5 minutes. And it's like, I guess it could take 5 minutes, but the consequence of this assignment taking 5 minutes is that it's not complete.
Right.
You've done it poorly. You didn't put the integrity in there.
Yep.
So time management is really having an awareness of how long something will take you. These are also individuals that may have what we call time blindness. So that
I'm not familiar with that term.
Yeah, time blindness, meaning that you don't have that urgency. Time isn't a factor. When you're thinking about planning something out, or when you're thinking about doing whatever it is, whether it's an assignment, whether it's driving from place A to place B, you're not really considering how long things take you. So that individual may end up being very late. Well, I didn't know. I didn't factor in that there would be traffic, or I didn't factor in that there was a detour. I just assumed that I would get there when I get there and not think about the consequences of what time, how important time can really be.
Yeah.
Okay.
We all have 168 hours in a week. And
Right.
how are you going to spend your time?
Right.
Right? No, being very mindful of that.
Yeah, and that time urgency.
Yeah.
That urgency of, well, gosh, if my appointment, I always tell my own kids and my students, if you're on time, you're already late. So
Yeah.
get there a few minutes early so that you can, accommodate for anything else that could go wrong. The elevator's broken, or
A train was on the train tracks, or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly, all
Yeah.
of that kind of stuff. And so individuals who struggle with time management don't have that urgency or see time as a concept that's relevant and significant.
So would you consider sleep hygiene a part of that?
Well, yes, I would, and it's very important to get sleep because the proper amount of sleep for where you are at developmentally. But I would say that sleep has more to do with like planning out your day, and so let's talk about the next. The next two we can actually put together, and those two skills that fall under executive functioning are planning and prioritizing. So planning and prioritizing, and we can certainly address the sleep question that you had, Ruth, which is a good one. So what I mean by that is, we all have a bunch of things to do, right? Throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, etc. They're not all of equal importance or of equal priority, right? When we have 5 things to do in a day, something has to come first and something has to go last, right? And so it forces us to think about what's my priority. And when you ask yourself that, what is my priority of the things that I have to do, And it forces you to come up with an order and a sequence. And then you ask yourself, well, why is that coming first? Why is that coming second? So for example, if I'm working with a student on all the homework assignments they have to do that evening, we'll prioritize the homework assignments that need to be due tomorrow, or maybe that are late, that we don't want them to be further past the due date, etc. So prioritizing gives us a really good roadmap as to what can come first, second, third, and fourth, and the why. Why. I want my individual clients to always think about why are they putting it in that order, because it brings that to their awareness. Okay? Along with the prioritizing, now you have to plan things out, and by planning, what's really important to do is to think about the task and break it down into manageable units. Because any task, whether it's a academic task, or whether it is a house chore or planning a vacation, can be broken down into manageable units so that you can really understand all the different aspects of that task.
Yeah, it's funny because we were talking about breaking things down, and even when we were talking before, I said I always use the analogy eating the elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you can't do everything at once. Or if you've got a buffet in front of you, you can't eat everything at once. You've got to prioritize
what's most important, in what order you want to do it, and it really helps with anxiety levels, and it also helps with doing things well. Right?
Yes.
When we know the manageable chunks that we can ingest at once. And so, Ruth, your question about prioritizing sleep or planning a sleep hygiene. Yeah, so if you know that you need to get 9 hours of sleep before you take the, I'm making this up, the SAT test. By the way, SATs are this is the SAT, ACT time for many of our college students. If you know you want to get at least 9 hours of sleep, work backwards. Lights out by 10 a.m. because you have to get up at, early
lights
the
out by
next
10
morning.
p.m.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Unless you really like to nap. Yeah, nap at 10. Yes, exactly. So lights out at 10 p.m., work backwards so that you know that you're getting enough sleep and you're prioritizing your sleep, and then, go backwards from that time. And so planning, prioritizing, I like to just clump them together because they go hand in hand. You prioritize what needs to be done, in what order, and why that makes sense, and you plan it out based on that. So you're creating a roadmap for what needs to be completed within that time frame.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because a lot of the anxiety I see around getting especially academic tasks done is around that moment of, well, what am I going to do right now? Like, what am I going to do next? And how do I decide what to pick up?
Yes. And it also helps, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, when you have a plan, it helps with you with decreasing some of that sense of overwhelm. And you're more likely to start it if you have a plan for it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's next?
So, working memory. Let's talk about working memory. Working memory, we use our working memory all day, every day, okay? That is our ability to hold on to information in our short-term memory reserve and use that information to execute a task. So right now, our listeners are tapping into your working memory. You're listening to this podcast. You're listening to me talk about working memory and maybe thinking about a follow-up question or a comment, And how we see working memory really play out in school is, the teacher's giving a lecture on, let's say, the Civil War or, whatever the topic may be, and students are taking notes. You're intaking the information and you're doing something
with it
significant with that
right
information.
There. Okay.
So working memory is an incredibly important aspect of executive functioning that we use all day, every day.
Very
And not just in the school setting, but in conversation. If you're at a cocktail party, there's a banter back and forth. You're listening to someone and you're, getting ready for a follow-up question, so it's working memory is not only important in academic settings, but also in social settings. You have to be able to hold on to what people are saying and be ready for a response, or to provide a response.
Well, and listen. I mean, you have to be able to listen. And I mean, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We're supposed to use the ears twice as much as the mouth, but I think that sometimes people are so excited to get their thought in that they're not necessarily absorbing what somebody else is saying around them.
So that was working memory. Yes, that's probably one of the more complex skills within our executive functioning. And so the next one, let's talk about cognitive shifting, or also known as mental flexibility. So this is the brain's capacity to move from one topic to another seamlessly, or make transition from one activity to the next. So oftentimes individuals who have trouble with cognitive shifting or mental flexibility, they pretty much are synonymous in the terminology. They often need extra time to get ready to the new setting or the new topic, or if, so let's say you're in school and, you're in history class, or, that the topic is some type of a historical subject, and then, right away or soon thereafter, the topic shifts into a completely different subject. That student may still be thinking about that previous subject or topic. So mental flexibility is the mind's way of being fluid and moving on to the next task or topic or environment.
Interesting. And so is that always something that, more flexibility is better? Or can you be so flexible that you're kind of not holding on to the current topic?
Yeah. I think the best scenario is to be able to be flexible enough to receive whatever new information is coming at you, right? So I wouldn't say that, I do worry about the individuals that are rigid, that are, so the opposite of mental flexibility is mental rigidity. Yeah. The ones who have a really difficult time moving on and that are stuck, or, they see the world more with like black and white, or maybe with blinders. So I would say that those are the individuals that I, worry about more when it comes to this topic. And if that's the case, obviously we want to look at other things that might be going on with them and how they perceive the world. But in general, as long as an individual, student, work, associate can be flexible and move along and move with the current of the changes of the environment, the topic, the situation, that's obviously ideal.
Yeah, being able to ride the wave.
Exactly, ride the wave. And by the way, one thing that I want our listeners to understand is our executive functioning skills are the last skills to fully mature and adapt in our brains.
That tracks.
Yeah, exactly, right? So they're housed in the frontal lobe part of our brain, in an area called the prefrontal cortex, and that is the last part of our brain to fully fuse. Okay? And so if these skills that we're talking about today are still lagging, that's okay, depending on where you are developmentally. But research has shown that our executive functioning skills don't fully develop until our mid-20s. Okay. And sometimes for men, it's actually later. Like late 20s.
Okay.
And if you've been someone who's struggled with your executive functioning skills your whole life, or maybe have, ADHD along with that, then even later. So sometimes all you need is time. Okay? So there should be some comfort in knowing that.
Well, and I see that play out with clients as they're we're asking teenagers to pick majors for colleges and careers and those types of things, and they don't maybe have all the information yet. And they aren't organized.
Right. And it's a lot of big decisions to make
right.
for a fully non-developed brain, right?
Right.
And that's why having the right supports along the way is crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very helpful.
Yeah.
Especially the kind of work you do, Kay. I feel like that you're right there kind of trying to help people sort themselves out and develop that kind of internal organization so they know where they want to
Well,
go.
and interestingly enough, I mean, the reason why I refer clients to N.E.T is because they may have, a plan and a direction. I may be helping them with all these different pieces of their career or their, college experience, but I can tell that they're not able to execute. They're not organized, or they've got, time management issues, but they're not delivering. And my learning over time is that their frontal lobe isn't fully developed yet, and they need help and they need scaffolding, and that's the great resource that you provide.
And sometimes that individual can have a plan. They can, I've had clients come to me with all sorts of beautiful planners, all sorts of beautiful handwriting that's just mapped out their entire week, did not miss a beat on what they need to do from the time they wake up to the time, that they sleep, but the execution is missing. And so then we have to peel the layers and say, okay, well, what got in the way? What got in the way of you starting that paper? What got in the way of not preparing for that interview, and therefore you say you bombed it? What is it? And so it's different for different people.
Right.
But I will say, planning things out and prioritizing, organizing is a really great first and second step.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. What's
Yeah.
next?
So let's keep moving on. We're on a roll here. So self-monitoring. This to me is the crux of our executive functioning system. And what that means, when we can self-monitor, we are aware and we're having that internal dialogue with ourselves about how to get things done. We are giving ourselves feedback. We're talking things through. So it's like that little voice in our heads that say, okay, I have to be there at this meeting at 10 o'clock, but I also have to do a drop-off at 8:30. Oh, and I have to pick up coffee for the group, and I have to prepare my notes for that presentation that I'm going to be presenting for my meeting at 10 o'clock. And so, you may not always have a chance to write out this roadmap, but you have an internal roadmap that's always telling you to, or most of the time that is, guiding you on how to do things.
Got it.
When to do it, and to be prepared for things that could come up and derail you along the way. So our self-monitoring skills are really that voice in our head that helps us, that just helps guide us. It's kind of like our it's our lighthouse. It's our internal lighthouse. It's our not to steal your term, Kay, but our internal compass.
Right. Right.
For putting that awareness into our head, so that we can get things done. And not just get things done, but get things done well with integrity. And then to follow up with some good feedback.
Yeah.
That worked, that didn't work. Well, next time I have to give myself extra time. Or,
right.
Goodness, I forgot to say this in that meeting. So next time I'm going to make sure, or I'm going to follow up with an email because I didn't articulate myself as nicely as I wanted to.
Got it.
And I think that's a lot of what I do as a tutor a lot of the time, is kind of being that little voice for someone until they can kind of take it over themselves.
Perfect.
And the nice thing about all of these skills that we're talking about is they can be taught. They can be explicitly taught. It's not like if you have it or you don't. It's not like that, Yes, we're all wired differently, but our executive functioning skills are skills that can be enhanced. They can be taught and they can be supported.
Awesome.
Okay, so I just feel so passionately about the self-monitoring because I just want to make sure that you guys understand it. If you have any other questions,
no, that
makes sense.
that's
Okay, good.
Well, I was actually going to bring up one thing that I have heard from several students is that it's funny when you call it self-monitoring because something they talk about is body doubling. Have you heard of that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
body doubling, right? Yeah. So, do you want to explain what that
it's
is?
basically like involving an external monitor, right?
Right.
So you're having someone come over and, in college, if you want to just work together, I do that with, friends of mine working out, if you want to go to a cafe and knock out some stuff, just having someone else there observing you makes it easier to do the thing.
Yeah, and it helps with the accountability piece too. So yeah, body doubling, it's actually quite common now with older ADHD individuals.
Oh.
In the situations that you just described. Like, I don't trust myself to go to the gym by myself, but I know if I have a friend come with me, I'm gonna sweat more.
So it's like an accountability partner.
It's like an accountability partner.
Okay.
And it is part of self-monitoring. You're tapping into an outside resource to help you monitor whatever it is that you're prioritizing. So a lot of college students will exactly that. We'll say, hey, let's go to the library together, even though we're not working on the same things.
Right.
I just need a body double there. I need someone there. So it's actually quite common. And when we get to an episode on ADHD, we will talk about that as one of the strategies.
Very cool. And I think that's also just such an important point to bring up, that these are things that can be taught and they're skills like any other. Because a lot of times, especially with executive functioning and things like that, people take it so personally. It's like this is a character flaw or something like that.
Oh, right.
Whereas it's more like, I don't know how to play piano right now, but I can learn how to do that. And I'm not a bad person because I don't know how to. I just haven't gotten those skills yet.
Well, yes, exactly. Thank you for bringing that up, because there is some shame or feelings of I feel lazy. I hear that a lot, or so and so is lazy, they're not organized, look at their room, and there is no such thing as laziness. That is a symptom of something larger, and as long as we can get to
the root cause, or
why exactly why
Mm-hmm.
things are the way they are, we can work with it. And it's mindset too, right? Like,
growth mindset
theory. Growth mindset theory is like love that word yet. You're not there yet, but that doesn't mean that you can't be there. And these are life skills, so eventually they're going to catch up with you. And if you give yourself some grace and some time and outside supports or internal supports, you will get there. They will get there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, and then we have, emotional regulation. Well, let me ask you, when you guys hear that term, what does that mean to you?
I think of little ones, like being able to calm yourself if, your flavor of juice isn't available or something like that.
I mean, I imagine tantrums.
Yeah.
Outbursts, like people not being able to function or to contain their emotions or to keep them in check.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
kind of an extreme, I guess, but...
Right. Yeah, that would be an extreme. Yes, so emotional regulation is finding the right balance internally such that our nervous system isn't at its peak and it's not flatlined.
Okay.
For the whatever given situation that we're in. Oftentimes we see that kids with emotional dysregulation issues, they're the kids that you've heard they can go from 0 to 10 without warning, and some adults can do that as well because they haven't learned how to regulate their emotions, So yeah, it's finding when you're emotionally regulated, you are functioning at a band that is appropriate developmentally. Anxiety is not a bad thing. Sometimes the right amount of anxiety can really serve as a motivator, right? So I'm not talking about some of the clinical issues here. I'm talking about if you're in a situation or let's say someone got a C or a D on a test and they thought they did what they thought they might have done better. Well, goodness, they're in the bathroom on their phone calling mom, completely crouched down, and so that's an emotional dysregulation.
Okay.
So that can come with maturity, that can come with strategies, which we'll talk about in the next episode, on what can you do when you start feeling your body become dysregulated. So it's really finding the right band in which we can function emotionally.
And does that manifest differently for different clients, like physically?
Yeah.
I mean, is there like a spectrum of reactions that people may?
Yes, that's a great question. Some individuals will become dysregulated externally, where, watch out if you're in the path of that, and then some can dysregulate internally, and that's harder to see.
Okay.
And so it's really important to find out what type of a emotional regulator you are, whether do you internalize these big feelings or do you externalize them, and then we can deal with each one. So there certainly is, whenever I'm doing like executive functioning coaching, there is that sliver of therapeutic approach to it. Because we're humans, right? We're complex beings. So it's never just about one thing or another. There's really think of all these skills that we're going over that encompass executive functioning. So it's really, there's a therapeutic approach, there's an educational approach, there's an academic approach, there's the advocacy,
Awesome.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, number 9, right?
Oh, yes. So the 9th one, I can't believe we're already on the 9th one. So task initiation. So let me ask you, Ruth, have you ever put something off and procrastinated?
Oh, me? Never. Yes, I have.
Yes, you have. Why do you think that happens? Is there a pattern to it?
There certainly is. The pattern I notice, especially working from home long term, is that it won't be that I'm not doing anything. I'll do something else that needs to be done, but not the thing I need to be doing. So if I need to send an email, I'll load the dishwasher instead.
You're the only one that I know that would think loading the dishwasher before something else. That's funny. Okay, what about you, Kay?
Yes.
Do you procrastinate?
I have procrastinated as well. And typically, it's funny, now that I know some of these pieces, I'm like, oh, maybe my procrastination is because I don't know how to get started, or a fear of failure, or I'm trying to peel back the why. Why am I procrastinating?
Yeah.
But typically, it's either something so big that I'm not sure where to start, or I do think it is a fear of not doing it well.
Right.
But yes, I do have a few things that I procrastinate.
Okay.
But I'm not going to load the dishwasher instead.
You're like, I'd rather work on my new website or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so task initiation is a fancy way of saying procrastination, to the point where, whatever it is that you want to get started on and want to get done is taking a lot longer to make that initial step to start it, and we do that for various reasons. There's a lot of reasons: fear of failure, or I'm disorganized. It could be all because of or poor time management, all of the other things that I've talked about thus far. So we do know that, first of all, procrastination, as much as we feel bad about ourselves when we do procrastinate, it is such a rampant issue. We all have a level. It's almost like an epidemic. People that are incredibly high functioning, tend to procrastinate. And then you have to ask yourself as well, why am I doing it? What is getting in the way? And then really dig deep in. Tap into that self-monitoring skill. Check the emotional dysregulation at the door and ask yourself, why am I doing it? Is it because it's too big of a task and I don't know where to begin? Okay, well then let's do some planning and prioritizing. Let's break that baby down into manageable units so that I can just do step 1. And if that step 1 is opening up my briefcase and turning on the laptop, that can be step 1. That's better than what it was 2 minutes ago, right?
Yep. It's infinitely more than nothing.
It's infinitely more than nothing, exactly. So asking yourself, why am I procrastinating on this particular task? So once you can peel that layer and you're tapping into think of the things that you're tapping into right there. You're tapping into your self-monitoring skills when you're doing that. You're tapping into cognitive shifting, because now you're forcing yourself to think in a way that may be hard for you. You're tapping into planning and prioritizing, because now, your brain is forcing you to say, okay, well, what would be step 1 and why is that step 1? So you got to start somewhere, but before you start somewhere, you have to ask yourself, why is this hard for me?
That's a good question.
Like, why why did it take me so long to, I had to redo my website. We've
Right,
talked about
right,
that.
right.
Why did it take me so long to redo my website? And only I can answer that. And I know it was because it just felt like a monster.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
felt like, a really big task, and I really liked some elements of what my original website was, but I knew it needed to be better, and I just didn't quite know what that was. So once I could identify why I was pushing back on that and getting started, and then I was like, okay, well, just start with one step and then start with another step. So yes, task initiation.
That's a big one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
And
last
then
one.
the 10th one that we're going to talk about, and then we'll stop with that skill, is our sustained attention. And that's really maintaining our focus and concentration on whatever it is that we need to attend to while limiting distractions. Now, that's really hard for a lot of our students now, given, all the distractions that there are,
Yes.
aka screens, phones. And, when you think about the amount of mental energy and cognitive energy that it takes just to open up your phone and scroll through multiple TikToks, our brains really aren't made to process that much information that quickly. We're just not. And so we're kind of rewiring that attention piece. We're rewiring, the ability to sustain our attention on the things that need attending, when we're competing with other interests. So sustaining attention is really about staying engaged and intaking the information that needs to be, or intaking or outtaking or attending to whatever is the output, in the light of a distracting environment.
All right. So here's a question. I mean, you talked about social media and distractions that our youth have. I mean, I'm going to guess that this focused attention, the sustained attention, was not something that just came in the last couple decades. That was something that was probably when all of this was created or discovered or whatever.
We have names to it now.
Okay.
Like we
Right.
have these really good clinical names to them in the last, I don't even know, decades now.
Right,
We
right.
really do. But when you and I were in school, were people
Right.
talking about sustained attention, executive functioning? No.
No.
We were using those skills.
Right, right.
Do you remember before phones, when someone gave you their phone number, you had to memorize it?
Right.
What is
Yeah.
that? What is that indicative of? Your working memory.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So these are not new. We have
Right.
clinical names to it, and we're so much more aware of it, which is self-monitoring, which is great.
Well, we're more aware of it, and I think it's more pervasive. I think it's more challenging today to have that sustained attention.
Because we have competing interests.
And it's just all of
Yeah.
us are just being bombarded. Our listeners are being bombarded right now. I mean,
Right.
and they may be able to listen to us and load the dishwasher or something else, which is great, or take a walk, which is great. But I feel for these youth who are, and I know we'll do a session later on, social media and
How it's ruining us.
well, and how do you lean into it and compartmentalize it, or how do you take it all together? So,
Well, we only have so much mental bandwidth,
Right. Yeah.
And so my message to our viewers and clients that I work with is, have fun, do the things that you want to do, but make sure you do the things that you have to do with integrity and value. That's one. Those are my three favorite words when I talk about executive functioning, and I apologize if I haven't used them enough, is create the roadmap, do things with integrity, and ask yourself where your value system is with how you want your output to be. And, just quickly backtracking to my comment about mental bandwidth, we only have so much of that available to us. Our cognitive resources are limited. It's not an unlimited resource. So our executive function skills and that system help us to decide what's important, how much time to put into something, what materials we need, when to do what, in what order, how to give ourselves the feedback we need, and all of that, and to sustain our attention, to attend to things that are important.
Brain's working overtime.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, always. So use your cognitive resources wisely, and it starts with our executive functioning skills because they do work together.
They sure do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All
All
right.
right. So tune in to the next episode where we will be revisiting each one of these skills, and we will be talking about strategies on what you can do if you have organizational issues, time management problems, planning, prioritizing gaps, working memory, cognitive shifting, self-monitoring, emotional regulation, task initiation, and sustained attention difficulties.
Awesome. Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
Can't wait.
Okay.
All right.
Until next time,
Thanks for listening.
thanks for
Thanks for
joining
listening,
us.
If today's conversation resonated, please share this episode with anyone who may need it and follow us at netcollective.org or wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss what's next.
We are N.E.T Collective, navigating everything together, one conversation at a time. Thanks for joining us.